The national media's conversations surrounding Nebraska football in their 2025 season are almost always Dylan Raiola-centric. And while I understand that because the quarterback is the most important position in college football, same with the NFL, there are other critical pieces to a football team's roster other than one of the 22 starters on offense and defense that take the field every Saturday, as long as they're healthy. And I know we have Friday and even Sunday night games now, but bear with me. I like to be specific. What I want to talk about today relates to the quarterback room, but I'm not going to talk about Dylan Raiola for all of this video, perhaps even much of this video. I want to answer a question from a Nebraska fan and viewer of my channel, the Peanut Butter Prophet, and he wants to know my thoughts on the second and third string Nebraska quarterbacks for 2025, and I want to tie that into my thoughts overall on the Nebraska quarterback room. I'm going to finish the end of the video with Dylan Raiola and start off with the projected second and third string quarterbacks, Marcos Davila and TJ Lateef. So that's what we're going to talk about here on this video. Make sure if you haven't already to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell, and comment your thoughts on Nebraska's quarterback situation down below. Tell me, Nebraska fans in particular, what topics you want to see me cover about your team. Because, as I said before, the national media, most of the time when they talk about Nebraska, it's only about Dylan Raiola. I want to talk about, Nebraska's offensive line and how I think it's going to be really good this year. I think that the defense has some areas with concern, but also some areas that could potentially be strengths. And this wide receiver room projects to be much better than last year's. So let me know what you want to hear down in the comment section below. And also, again, hit the notification bell, not just for the channel, but for the Nebraska Football podcast that will be linked in the description. That way you can follow my Nebraska football content more closely, and all that will be plugged into that playlist podcast. So hit the notification bell for that. And also, if you want to ask me a question and have it be made into a video, whether live on Wednesdays when I typically answer viewer questions, or just on my own free time if it's interesting or I didn't have the time to get to it on Wednesday, join my Discord server via the link in the description or down below in a reply to the pinned comment. I'll put it there. Don't always, but this video I will. And navigate to the hashtag YouTube mailbox channel and just type away any questions you have, and I'll put them in my log and eventually get to them on a live show or in just a normal video. Thank you so much, and let's resume. So, what is the state of Nebraska's quarterback room? Well, I think the state of the quarterback room is the average state of quarterback rooms of most good teams in college football, which is a plus for Nebraska. They haven't had that recently. You have a high-quality starter, a lot of upside, but you don't have that much depth to ride with, and there is a floor that perhaps is lower than you'd want it to be ideally. And let's get to that here. So, scenario one, in relationship to the second and third string quarterbacks of Nebraska. Scenario one is Dylan Raiola gets injured. Now, I hope this doesn't happen in the season. Pray it doesn't, but it could happen. And what will happen if Dylan Raiola, say, gets an injury where he's out for a few games, like Curtis Rourke, where the thumb on his throwing hand was just destroyed, so he had to, I think he got surgery or something like that, and he had to wait a little bit for it to recover. You have that going on, or maybe Raiola has something worse happen where his ACL gets torn or something gets torn. Maybe what happened to Carson Beck, and he's just out for even longer. Hopefully it doesn't happen, but it could. What would happen is Matt Rule and Dana Holgorsen would likely roll out Marcos Davila, TJ Lateef, maybe Gramstad, but I want to look at Davila and Lateef, especially since Marcos Davila, the quarterback from Midland, Texas, who enrolled at Purdue out of high school in the 2024 class, Nebraska took him in the portal. So I'm assuming that he would probably be their second string guy, and Gramstad is more the, really emergency backup and practice squad quarterback is kind of what I'm thinking of. Maybe I'm wrong there, but it's just intuition. So he was recruited by Graham Harrell and Seth Doji. out of Texas, those two coaches from Purdue. A composite 4-star and 24/7 Sports 4-star, top 30 quarterback in the class, top 60 player out of Texas, 20th best QB per 24/7 Sports, was a 3-star, 87 overall, so a high-level 3-star in the transfer portal. In 2022, he threw for 3,051 yards, 36 touchdowns, 12 interceptions, with a 59.2 completion percentage as a junior, and was a Texas District 2-6A Offensive Newcomer of the Year as a sophomore, 26 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, 2,716 yards, and a completion percentage of a 66.1%. As a senior, 27 TDs, 12 INTs, 4 rushing touchdowns, 3,126 yards, and just below that 60% completion percentage. So, looking at him as likely the second stringer, you would suffer, obviously, a major drop-off. And at that point, you would want to make things easy for him, more short passes, things that could be considered almost like runs, I guess, where, you pass, but it's a short pass, and it's meant to be a short pass, so whether it's wide receiver screens or slants or just trying to make things easy, have him get the ball to open receivers and try and scheme receivers open rather than just relying on his talent like you can sometimes with Riola, if you get what I mean. Obviously, there'd be a huge drop-off, but that's not very unusual for most college football teams right now. The depth just isn't what it was. Davila out of high school was 6'2", 239 pounds, and when he entered the portal, 6'3", 235 pounds is what he's currently listed at. He's enrolled at Nebraska currently. TJ Lateef is 6'2", 190 pounds. Coming out of high school, 89 overall player per 24/7 Sports, so a high-level 3-star. Per the composite, was a top 250 player, 20th best quarterback in the 2025 class, 21st overall player in California, primarily recruited by Glenn Thomas. Made the Elite 11 roster, and according to Greg Biggins, who evaluated him on May 10th of 2024, Lateef is one of the top signal callers in the nation, paraphrasing here, and has been on our radar since he was just a freshman. He has a really nice all-around game to him and brings a lot to the offense. Pocket passer with dual threat capability, can sit back and make most throws that you want, and has mobility to escape the pocket, extends plays, and makes things happen outside the pocket and outside of the usual bounds of a play call. You can run zone read with him. He's made nice strides in his throwing game. Had one of the best days of any quarterback at the Elite 11 regional camp. This was in 2024. Arm was live, release looked tighter, and was accurate at all 3 levels of the field. Tough kid and a gamer, and has had multiple fourth quarter games with a winning drive on his resume. So obviously has some upside to him, has some talent, and I think has that winning and clutch gene that Nebraska has needed. And Raiola had that coming out of high school. Absolute winner. However, he's a true freshman. Wouldn't say he's quite ready, especially for Big Ten defenses. Nebraska's schedule is easier. I'm talking about this, again, under the premise that Riola gets hurt or something. That's really the only reason why you would ever talk about Nebraska's quarterback room or any other college football's quarterback room outside of a QB competition, which Nebraska doesn't have, or the room is just insanely deep. Nebraska's is neither of those, but still it's a viewer question, so I just wanted to bring that up there. Obviously, Dylan Raiola is who parts of the season really ride or die on. 67.1 completion percentage last year, 2,819 yards, 6.9 yards per pass attempt, 13 touchdowns, 11 interceptions, a 129.9 passer rating, and he got sacked 27 times for negative 65 yards on the season. Long rush of 38 came against Ohio State, where outside of that carry, he basically went for negative yards, or few to no yards at all. And also finished with a 63.8 QBR, which was 54th nationally. So he had a pretty rough year last year, but pretty good year at the same time, or at least an average, above average year for a true freshman. And I would say definitely good, or maybe even great, when you consider the horrific offensive play calling he had for much of the year under Marcus Satterfield, and the fact that a lot of the portal additions or players that Rule had developed in one year and took over from Frost, stuff just didn't translate in the way that I think Rule and many Nebraska players and coaches and even fans exactly anticipated. But they won 6 games. It was a win and a half below their preseason win total. So at the same time, it's not like the year was a total failure, and Raiola certainly wasn't a total failure. There were many more issues besides Dylan Raiola in his performance. I expect Riola to take a pretty big step forward this season. But when you look at the players behind him and what he was last season, and the fact that Nebraska, I will strongly say I don't think Rule has them where he wants to have them. And I think that Nebraska fans will tell you that as well when they look at their roster and you go deep into it. I don't think this is the ideal Matt Rule roster. I don't. I think they lost way too much for his comfort. You know, back in 2019 or his final season at Temple in 2016, when in those years where he won double-digit games, you know, you had a rotating roster where, yeah, you have guys leave, but then you have a next set of players ready to step up. Seniors in, and that's because the prior seniors are out kind of deal. That's not exactly the case in college football anymore. And when I look at Nebraska's current roster, it's the best roster that Rule has ever had overall. But a lot of that hinges on some transfers and key individual players like Riola. Not always different from prior teams who've taken big strides even before the portal era. But then you look at their defense, and I would argue this is the worst defensive roster that Matt Rule has had, certainly in terms of, I would say, starting capability. Maybe I'm wrong there, and I'm going to do a deep dive video on Nebraska, a regular season preview video on them, and probably several other videos talking about different sides of the ball and different position rooms, too. You should hit the notification bell for those. But a lot of the season, in truth, does ride on Raiola, but more importantly, looking at this team in the long term, because Raiola's going to only be here for 3 more years and 2 more years, all of those at the most. He could leave early for the draft. I think that Nebraska's current recruiting class, who TJ Lateef was out of high school, the fact they brought in Davila from the portal and who he was at a high school, I don't know. And this is where I'm going to really end the video off on. Are there any concerns for Nebraska long term when it comes to recruiting or bringing in another highly touted QB? I know that in 2027, they have the attention of a really highly touted quarterback. But then again, after the 2026 season, there's always a world where Riola's gone. Or if he comes back for 27, you're relying on a redshirt freshman afterwards, which I guess is what Ohio State's doing this year. But still, it's not like landing him is going to be a guarantee. Before I say that and set it in stone, let me look at the 2027 recruiting class. Trey Taylor, actually, I'm straight up wrong there. Yeah, it is probably going to be a guarantee. They got to commit from him May 1st, and he's nearly a top 50 player. But still, nothing is guaranteed, nothing at all in the world of college football. So it's likely, since he's committed, and most players who commit, Trey Taylor included, typically stay with the original school they committed with. But you never know. He's going to be highly sought after. So if Nebraska can keep him, that's impressive. This quarterback room, I would grade as, mainly because of Raiola, an above average, good, maybe great quarterback room of the 2025 season. But there's still a lot of work to be done, not just on Raiola's part, but ideally you would probably want more ready depth if you're going to be a Big Ten and consistent college football playoff contender. It's the case for most schools. But I know that Matt Rule and Nebraska fans want to get back to greatness. And to do that, well, there is still a long way to go, in my mind. Not just overall for the team, but you can even take a piece of the team. You can even take a biopsy of the team, and that being the quarterback room, and you can see that there, where there needs to be steps forward, not just with the starters play, but with the depth and caliber of player in the second and third string as well. It's a lot to ask for with the portal and with NIL and where Nebraska's been in recent history, but that's the state of Nebraska's quarterback room right now. It's good, I'd give it a grade somewhere in the B's, maybe an A-. Just that. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell, and I will see you all very soon.